What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron Uncensored podcast. And it's rolling along, man. We're almost done with the Big 12 when it comes to season previews. And tonight, really, it's loaded. We got three contenders in our minds, anyway. Some people might say no. Vegas kind of has a disagreement with us, but these are three contenders. I don't give a shit who you are. So let's just go ahead and dive into these. Big names tonight. We got Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. So this is loaded with information. Kansas first. Obviously, 2023 was one that it stung for them. Three really close losses. They did get smacked around a little bit by Texas there. But hey, they went in. They got a bowl win too. I really like what the coach is doing there in Leopold, and I think he's got them on a good trajectory. Every year it's gotten better, and this is a hell of a season for them to go out and accomplish every goal that a football team could want. So let's talk 2024. Solid return production. There's some changes on the staff, Trev.
Yeah. There's we'll talk about who left the Jayhawks coaching staff first. Obviously, most people know about this already, but former offensive coordinator for Kansas, Andy Kotelnicki. Man, these names are killing me this season already. Good night. Anyway, I'm sure a brutalized name, but he left Kansas to take the same position at the University of Penn State. And then also they had the defensive backs coach, Jordan Peterson, leave for a Texas A&M job. And shockingly enough, he left for the Texas A&M job even after last season being promoted to co-defensive coordinator. So it's kind of interesting there. And then as far as the additions, it's actually they're promoting from within to replace the offensive coordinator. They're bringing in Mr. Zabrowski. He's been with the Jayhawks since 2021, served as the quarterbacks coach since. Now he's going to be moving to he was instrumental in developing both Jalen Daniels and Jason Bean. So that's something to be said there. He is going to take over the offensive coordinator position. And yeah, I think that's a really, really good promotion because he's already, I mean, you don't really lose much. He's going to have his own twist on things and offensive styles, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But as far as his development of quarterbacks, I mean, I think both Jason Bean and Jalen Daniels have developed quite well since they've been there. I mean, Jason Bean, he was a crazy, like, I don't want to say fluke because that's not fair to him, but I thought that he came in when Jalen went down and, didn't miss a beat as far as I could tell. I mean, it was obviously a different play style for the most part.
Yeah.
However, I mean, you didn't have too much of a drop off with Jason Bean from the start. So I think that goes a lot into coaching, and you have to talk about how well this coaching staff last year prepared this team to play through all the diversity that they experienced. So I think hiring from within makes a lot of sense in this case.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've seen it. I think it's a smart thing to promote from within at times. You keep more people on your team as well. You got the familiarity, especially going into a season like this one where you got so many things stacked in your favor. And I know Bean's gone, man. I miss the Bean. I love seeing that dude, man.
I mean, Jalen Daniels is Jalen Daniels is pretty fun to watch, though. I think he'll do really well this year.
Absolutely. I agree. Like honestly, Jalen's the starter. Bean came in and did everything he needed to do. But Jalen, obviously, that's the guy, and he comes back for this season, which is absolutely huge. It sounds like he's rested up, he's healed up. He did a little bit in the spring game, but most of it's letting the backups work, letting these younger guys get in, and then you go in and you go to the transfer portal. Just since we're talking about some changes, we like to hit the portal, and obviously it's huge in football now. Kansas brought in 11. they lost 13, had the 52nd overall class. Not terrible. Nothing really jumps out too much to me, especially on who they lost. Reed Adams and Keys would be the biggest. But you bring in some guys to replace the O line and shore that up, because I think that was where you lost the most. Amir Herring from Michigan. That's a guy that, we're Michigan fans. I thought he was a talented guy. Obviously, he didn't get the shakeout. Michigan's offensive line has been absolutely loaded, but they still rotate pieces. So I think Herring's going to be a good get for Kansas. Bryce Foster's one that just came in from Texas A&M. Loads of potential. I know he's had maybe some like issues off the field with football in general. But again, it's a new change of scenery. I don't want to talk too much on something I don't know enough about. I hope he comes in there and kills it for Kansas. But the biggest one that they're really excited about is Baumgartner from FCS ranks. Tiffin, they really like what he's going to do, and they think that he's going to be should be their starting center from what I've been reading. But hey, if that's not the case, let us know. Outside that, I mean, really, Simmons coming in, again, more linemen. But looking on the outside, on the defensive side, Job coming in from Michigan State, that's a big one. They need the help on defense. And you're looking at a solid team, guys. I mean, 59% returning starters, 21%, 21st offense last year, 62nd defense. So you turn that defense up just a little bit, this team's going to be a problem. Trevor, what are you thinking, man? I like what they got, especially.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you that you kind of you nailed all the points I was going to pretty much mention, is that you could tell where Kansas's focus was as far when it came to the transfer portal. Just their transfer class speaks volumes to what their focus was, and that was shoring up edge rushers and offensive and the line in general, both points of contention. And they have a wide receiver, I think, a tight end here, a wide receiver there. But the transfer portal is littered with, or the transfer class that these guys put in is littered with linemen on both sides of the ball. And that being said, I mean, they still got a pretty decent class coming in as well for the recruiting side of things. I mean, they've got Deshaun Warner, who's a 4-star, 7th best in the country out of Arizona, coming in at 6'3", 217 as an edge rusher. He's 4-star, 96 rated as a 4-star. As opposed to 247 Sports. They still have a top 50 recruiting class. When you do the composite rank, it pretty much averages out to 43 between the transfer portal and the recruiting class. But again, Brendan, I mean, they focused on edge, offensive tackles, offensive linemen, a running back, like I said before, a running back or a safety or a corner or a tight end here or there. But I mean, we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4 offensive linemen in the top tiers of their. So I mean, they've 4 offensive linemen signed with them, and that was just from the recruiting class, not from the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Add that with what they've already brought in, you can just tell what their focus is as controlling the line of scrimmage for Jalen Daniels to be able to pick people apart. And I think that is what their focus is going to be this year. I look forward to seeing what this offense is going to do.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, you have to control the line. And Devin Neal also, you're not just talking Jalen, because obviously he's a talented guy, but you have Devin Neal returning at running back too. That's huge. Their top receivers are all back. I mean, this is a team that's, I think, is going to be dangerous. It just depends on how the offensive line gels. And same, we've echoed this throughout all of these previews. Any team that's got so many changes, even just in one area, you just got to see how it gels. You got to see how they work together. But I think this is going to be a dangerous team.
Definitely one of the favorites, I feel like.
Yeah, especially, we'll talk about schedule here in a minute, but this again, a contender for the Big 12, and what an opportunity. But again, defense is another one that's going to need to really step up, get a little bit better, and push you to the next level. Backfield, I believe, is going to be strong. They return Bryant and really everybody from what I've seen. Joe coming in on the defensive end, you need him to come in and step up immediately. Really, the biggest thing that I saw about this team was a red zone defense. Horrible last season. Let's see if it gets better this year. Again, I really like Leopold. I think he's doing a great job. Every year it's gotten better. Let's see it get better this season. Trevor, what do you think? Anything else on the team before we talk schedule?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a really, really solid group of players. I feel like they brought in the offseason to add to what they have returning. And, I think the sky's the limit for these guys. And I mean, we're about to go through the schedule, and it's going to show in the schedule too on how much a win now mentality I feel like Kansas needs to have this year.
Yes. And people talk about, playoffs or bust or, conference championship or bust. I feel like this is a year like you've got to attack it this season for them. And again, you win the conference, you're going to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So like if you make the playoffs, hell of a year, awesome year. Kansas football, you got a great coach, you're moving in the right direction. But if this thing tanks, okay, hold on. Now this is a really solid team that you got there. What's going on? What happened? So again, injuries. You need Jalen to stay healthy. How's that O-line going to do? And really, I want to see the pass rushers step up. Let's go and talk schedule, Trevor, because we mentioned it when we did our schedules. Who's got the hardest? Who's got the toughest? And really looking at it, they've got one of the easiest schedules in the Power Four. Look, we know Illinois, you got to go to Champaign. It's a Big Ten team. It's not easy, but this is a game that you need to go out and smack them around. You need to go win it. And then UNLV is a team. Don't sleep on them, but you should win that game. When you look at it, it's coming down to West Virginia, Kansas State, and Iowa State. The rest, you don't want to let them sneak up. But Trevor, what are you seeing on this schedule, man? I think it's winnable.
Yeah, I do think it's winnable. First of all, just wipe the floor with Lindenwood. Let's just play game by game here, folks. Kansas, do not look ahead. Do not be that team this year, please. You will destroy a lot of hopes very quickly. Man, that happens. Oh my God, Bedlam will happen.
that just shut it down.
But I mean, Brendan, honestly, like this schedule is nice for them. Obviously, the rivalry game with Kansas State is always going to be a toss-up. It doesn't matter how the rankings are with either one of these teams. It's kind of like I attribute this rivalry to Michigan State, maybe, where it does not matter where these teams are in the rankings or what the records are. They're just going to go at it. And that's the way I feel about Kansas State and Kansas. I really think that even Iowa State is more dangerous to me than potentially Kansas State and West Virginia, even though West Virginia is away and early. I just feel like Iowa State is the most dangerous team in the Big 12 right now. Just after, I know we just reviewed them, and I really think that I just have this feeling about Iowa State. It's going to be one of these years where they're just going to, they had all that distraction last year that probably had a lot to do with everything that happened with that team. So I'm just looking for them to have like this massive bounce back year and just go like full tilt on the Big 12.
Yeah, again, this is a team that you really need to run it, and you've got to beat Kansas State. You mentioned it, but the streak is not good right now. It's Kansas State's been owning it. So I want to see Kansas get in there and actually finish the job, like get it done, because you got everything going for you. So let's see if you get past that. But you're right. Iowa State's going to be a dangerous game. I know, they might be overlooked from outsiders, but people in the Big 12 know that's going to be a good team. Also, don't sleep on these teams I think they've gotten better. Colorado's gotten better. TCU's a team to watch for. Don't let these teams trip you up because you've got, again, everything going your way.
What was the over-under on them?
Oh yeah, my bad. Over under is 8.5 for Kansas this year.
Eight and a
So
half.
Vegas likes them.
I would take the over on that. I would take the over on that with the way the schedule lays out.
Yeah, and again, just it's health. It's health. Keep everybody healthy, and
Jalen has to
I
stay
think they
healthy
can
this
get that.
year. I don't think they
Yeah,
can. They can. I don't think they're going to catch lightning in the bottle twice with another Jason Bean in the waiting in the wings type of situation. I don't think
yeah,
you can expect that to happen 2 years in a row.
yeah. You just got to be ready and keep him healthy and just lean on that running game.
And
But yeah,
yeah, exactly. And that's exactly why I like the fact that they kind of went all in on offensive linemen for lack of a better term, as much as
yeah,
Kansas can. So I think that's a good point that they know their weakness, they know their problem or their, I guess you could say, hot points, and just kind of
mhm.
go from that they are addressing the line situation.
Yep, I agree. We'll see what happens. Again, these are not previews, or excuse me, these are not predictions. Like we're not saying, oh, they're going to win every single. No, these are just previews of the teams, what we're seeing. And maybe get feedback from you guys what you're seeing, because then we'll make predictions as we get closer to the kickoff. Now, let's jump on to the rival Kansas State, another contender this year in our minds or in my mind and a lot of people. But there's been a lot of changes too, Trevor. So it's different. It's a different group, but they've got a lot going for them as well. 59% returning production. So hey, they still have stuff going on. We're gonna get into that here soon.
Right. That's right.
Trevor, what you got, bro?
Yeah, not much. They didn't do a whole lot in the offseason. Connor Riley, the 5-year member of the Kansas State football staff who directed the Wildcat offense during the recent bowl victory, has taken over the reins at the offensive coordinator position. And then Matt Wells, one of the great offensive minds they have and developer of quarterback talent, has been hired as co-offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, shocking, and assistant head coach. This would be Chris Kleiman, I think, is in a win now mentality for the Kansas State Wildcats. I feel like just by judging what they're doing, what they did, I feel like they got a few good players. I thought they could be a little more aggressive, but I thought they did well in the transfer portal. What do you
Yeah.
think, Brendan?
Yeah. So looking at the portal, and obviously you lose some strong guys like Kobe Savage, lead the third, and then obviously Will Howard. That sucks losing your quarterback, but they're really excited about Avery Johnson too. So I don't
Yes, they
know.
are.
I'm curious to see what the actual fan base thinks about that change up.
Yeah.
Kind of like Ohio State situation. Obviously, he went to Ohio State. But bringing guys in, I really like them bringing in Dylan Edwards. I think that's huge for them. He's a threat out of the backfield, in the passing game as well as running. Also bringing in Cephas from Penn State. He had a really good season before that last year, but again, Penn State, they've had their own issues on offense. So I think he's going to be a really good addition to this team, a veteran wide receiver, guy that's been around a minute. Jordan Riley, a bigger safety. Easton Kilty, that's a guy on offensive on the O line. You need that. I know he's coming up from the FCS ranks, but it doesn't matter. North Dakota, any of these teams, these guys know how to play ball. You get them in there and you put them in your system. And like you said, I like their coaching staff too, and I think they develop really well. So you're going to get a lot out of these guys. But no, I like what they did in the portal. Again, it's not the most flashy class. It's nothing crazy. 64th overall. You brought in 10, you lost 17, but you got people to fit the needs that you have. And you pair that with Avery Johnson, and I think you're going to have a solid team here. One that's going to be, again, dangerous and a contender in the Big 12. Trevor, what are you thinking on Avery Johnson? I know he had a good bowl game.
Yeah, he had a good bowl game. Right. And honestly, from everything that I have read on the situation there after Will Howard left, is that essentially that almost every single person that reports on the Kansas State team basically said that Avery Johnson was already moving at or ahead of Will Howard already prior to Will Howard leaving. So when he left, a lot of that stuff was already out, which I think might have had a driving factor in Will Howard transferring. He may have been told by the coaching staff that they're going to ride with the younger guy. That's just speculation. I don't know anything about that, but
I mean, they were getting the playing time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think it's the right move for Kansas State to move on. I mean, Will Howard, I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. He might be a slightly better version of what Ohio State had last year in McCoy, or in McCord. Good night. We're going back a few years here, but whatever. Anyway, but no, I was going to say, is like you mentioned it. They picked up that offensive lineman, the 4-star from the FCS ranks, and they also added, again, kind of like Kansas in this regard. They added 4 offensive linemen, this year in recruiting. Just alone, we got, let's see, kid out of Iowa, 6'4", 281. The other one, 6'7", out of Pennsylvania, 6'7", 305, Brendan. Like, he could he's already got a big enough body and frame probably where he could probably potentially start even in the Big 12 if he develops properly. But they got 6'6", 280 out of Kansas and a 6'8", 280-pound guy also out of Kansas. So they recruited very well in state by getting 2 very good top 30 players at the position, the number 2 and number 4 offensive lineman in the state of Kansas, which is very good for Kansas State. And I think they should be very happy about that. The in-state stuff, they did really good on in-state recruiting, and I think they won that particular battle. If you were to be comparing the two, Kansas and Kansas State definitely won the in-state recruiting battle.
Yeah, that's what you need to do. And to keep this momentum going, you've got to win the recruiting against your rival in state. And they're, like you said, they're doing that. And I mean, again, you hope some of these recruits can at least get in the rotation. You've got a strong team. Let's get these guys ready for next, and maybe somebody's going to actually, surprise and actually be a full-time starter too. Who knows? Yeah. I'll say, when I look at this team though, and what they're working on for this season, what they brought in is huge. Again, Edwards coming in, but then you still have Giddens at running back. You've got 3 main wide receivers returning. So I mean, it's you've got pieces here. You add in a veteran in Cephas. So these are things that are just going to help a young quarterback in Avery Johnson to feel comfortable. And obviously he's been on the team. He knows the system. This is huge for this team, and that's why there's hype here. Their over/under is 9.5. I forgot to mention that. So again, they're really they've got Vegas out there throwing big numbers.
I'm surprised. I mean, I think their schedule is a little bit tough, and I'm surprised it's 9.5. I didn't know it was that high.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little surprised at Vegas in general on how they've done some of the Big 12 numbers. Like, we'll talk about Oklahoma State here soon, but I also kind of understand it. I'll say also on defense for Kansas State, I think it's going to be a strong defense. You've got some losses in the portal that we mentioned, but I like this staff, man. I think they've got good development. And then you bring back guys like Siegel and Payne. They're locking down the back end. And then you got a big sumbitch and excuse my language, but he's a huge dude, man. Sumalo up there in the nose tackle. He's going to be your anchor. This guy, he's 340, almost 340 pounds. That's what you need to really anchor this defense. Get your edges going, and this team's going to be dangerous, guys. I do not sleep on them. If you are, you're wrong.
Yep.
and again, these are teams that are going to be contending for the Big 12 championship, which means they're going to be contending for the actual playoffs too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that is key to this season, the Arizona game does not count to the conference schedule because they're out of conference opponents. So that's a funky little thing.
Wait,
it doesn't
what?
count to the conference slate. Yep. Because they had already been scheduled, and then once they came into the new conference. Yeah,
Okay.
so there's a couple of those this year. There's I think in the ACC as well. But it's funky. But hey, even if you lose that game, all right, you still win the Big 12 without it, without issue.
But
what do you say we talk about the schedule, Trevor?
Yeah, let's talk about it for a second, because I'll tell you what, Brendan, like even Arizona, even Tulane, if you want to go even as early as Tulane, could be potentially be a problem because it is in New Orleans, one.
Absolutely.
And then once again, potentially a trap game if you look ahead to Arizona. I don't think Kansas State can afford to look ahead of any opponent at this point in this season.
No.
Maybe. I mean, you just got to play game by game, obviously. I know it's a big revelation, folks. Don't just control yourself. Playing game by game. I know I'm a genius like that. Don't. Anyway,
he's the brightest mind in football. I tell you this,
greatest mind ever. But no, the stretch, the last game of September with Oklahoma State starts a stretch that I think is very dangerous for Kansas State. And the only reason I say that is they got to go through Oklahoma State, Colorado, West Virginia, in Colorado and in West Virginia, in Morgantown, and then you come home to play a rivalry game. I think the Kansas game isn't as dangerous if it was at the beginning of this stretch. But since it's at the end of the stretch, sure, I worry about Kansas State being essentially exhausted by the point they hit Kansas.
Yeah.
Just because these teams, and the only reason I say that, Brendan, is because the teams prior to the Kansas game are all going to be making this defense run wild all over the field. You spread offense, 5 wide. You can expect it from all three of the opponents: Oklahoma State, Colorado, and West Virginia. I don't know what you feel about it, but I think that it's 4 big game stretches, the make or break portion of their season. Like if they're undefeated going into this, they need to get through all of this unscathed.
Absolutely. I'd circle obviously there's a rivalry game, everything, but you got to get through Oklahoma State, and that's before a bye week. You need that momentum going into the bye before you go play Colorado, which is a reloaded team, a totally new team. Well, you'll have plenty of film on them by this point, and we'll all have a better idea of, is Colorado legit? Or are they not? Like, what the hell's going on there?
Right.
But then, like you said, the West Virginia and then going to playing Kansas, that's tough, man. And then let's not forget, at the very end, you got Iowa State. And that's, looking at the 2023 schedule, you remember the Snow Bowl. I mean, that they spoiled, your season even further at the end of last year.
Yeah.
All these games were so close last season. Kansas State had so much going for them. Last second loss to Missouri, tight loss to Oklahoma State, and then overtime loss to Texas. So, and then you also had the Iowa State game in the snow. I mean, that's the frustrating stuff. You need to get rid of that. You need to finish those games, and it's a tough schedule, guys. I mean, Arizona,
it's
like you
tough.
said, Tulane.
It's hard for me. It's hard for me to do 9.5. It's hard for me to look at this schedule. You know what? I mean, maybe I do see 10 games. They could maybe go 10-2 on this schedule. I don't think they're going to be. If they do 10-2, they will not be in the playoff unless they go to the Big 12 championship at that point and win it. They have to get to the Big 12 championship if they're going to take 2 losses.
So now, look, again, if you lose to Arizona early and you say lose to Oklahoma State, but you beat everybody else, I mean, you're going to be, 10-2.
I would imagine. But yeah, you'd be 10. Yeah, so you'd be 9-1 in conference. Yeah, that would get them at least into the championship game for sure.
Yeah,
that would have them one of the top teams.
Yeah, so I mean, Yeah, I think they have really good chance to make the playoffs this year. You just got to. It all hinges on Avery being legit and how he handles the full season. And then the offensive line, want to see how they hold up, but I think they're going to be a strong team. Let's see what they do with it. Let's see what they do with it. Again, Kansas State fans, let us know what you think. We'll do more. We'll do actual predictions later. This is just us looking at the teams, seeing what we see. Trev, you ready to jump into Oklahoma State?
Or you got anything else? See what Mike Gundy's got going on.
Let's talk all the mullet, man. Oklahoma State last year, the old Pokes, man. That was just a funky season. You get smacked around by South Alabama, you barely lose to Iowa State, and then you get eviscerated by UCF. You get to the Big 12 championship and get beat around by Texas, and then you go out and you beat Texas A&M in the Texas Bowl. It was a funky season, man. And this is where I think the Vegas odds have them at only an over under of 7.5. All right, so they bring back 85% of their starters production. They were the 30th offense last year, but they had the 122nd overall defense. It was really bad, especially against the run. But now you're looking into 2024, and you bring a lot of guys back. You've still got Bowman. You've got obviously Ollie Gordon, who's going to be a Heisman favorite this season. You did some work in the portal, Trevor. What about any changes on the staff? And
yeah, the only real I feel like in my personal opinion, is I think the biggest and only real relevant changes to the staff, and that is Mike Gundy has brought in Paul Rudolph, not Randy. Good Lord. I don't know. I was going to think Randy Rudolph, but no big deal. No, it's Paul Rudolph to replace Greg Richmond as the defensive line coach. And that's really the only major change of the coaching staff. But yeah, they did some work in the portal. I mean, I kind of like what they did. And man, there is a theme at the top of the Big 12. I'll let you talk about it a little bit, but it is line.
Sure.
They are all focused on line play.
You got to be. I mean, again, we know what wins football games, and that's being able to run the football and control the line of scrimmage. Yeah. And when you have Ollie Gordon back there, you better be able to move the rock. But their blessing is they didn't really need anything out of the portal because they've got a bunch of returning starters on the front end. But their portal class, not bad, not great. When you look at, it's the 69th ranked class, which is nice, by the way. But it's not, overly exciting. But you went out and got some good dudes, man. Defensive side, Ezigbo. He's coming up from the FCS ranks in Gannon. They're really excited about him and what he's been doing. Bringing in guys like Hilton, safety from UTEP. You did bring in an offensive lineman in Glass coming from Arizona State. A couple running backs because you lost some. You got Trent Howland coming in, AJ Green. So I mean, you guys have brought in some people. The biggest loss is it's going to be McKinney. Obviously, it sucks losing a cornerback, any depth, but also going to an in-conference, opponent sucks too. And then the other one I thought would be Jaden Bray, again, going to West Virginia. Even if they're not starters, but it's still depth guys, starters, doesn't matter. Anybody that goes to an in-conference opponent, that just sucks. So that's who I've got as the ones that, hurt the most. But I like what this team has, especially how much returning production they have. Again, they've got wide receivers coming back. They've got a really strong offensive line that they had last year, pretty much all returns. You've got Ollie Gordon. It's all coming down to Alan Bowman. How is he going to do? Because last year he had a lot of turnovers, man. And we saw it at Michigan when he would come in and extra time, a lot of turnovers. But second year in the system, they call him the doctor there. I want to see how he works, man, because he's been in college for a minute. So I want to see how he does this season. I call him the Michigan legend. That's what I say. But Look, I like Allen. I hope he does really good this year for him. Trev, what do you think about this team and what they're bringing back? And there's
I
excitement here.
Yep, there is some excitement. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of these are drawn on, but I personally was also drawn to the fact that they really focused in on wideouts. It looks like they're actually kind of going on in. I mean, their top recruit this year is a wide receiver, 6'3" wide receiver out of Texas, 45th best, but he's still a 4-star, 6'3", 205 in Trey Griffiths. And on top of that, they brought in 2 other 4-star uh, transfers. So I don't know, Brennan. I'm thinking that they're looking pretty good. Plus the like you said, the returning stuff that you were already talking about.
Yeah,
I
like you said, wide receiver too. I mean, bringing in Freeman from Oklahoma, which again,
he wasn't a 4-star. I thought he was a 4-star. That's my bad. I thought he was a 4-star.
Oh, dude, it's all good. That it blends together when you're looking at it on the screen.
Yeah.
And then the other one comes in from Virginia Tech and Lofton.
Yep,
so
Lofton, yeah.
Yeah, you're bringing in help.
2 running backs that they got and coming in. Granted that they're one's from Arkansas and then the other one's from Indiana.
Oh, Indiana. Hey, I like Indiana running backs, man. They're usually
Trent Holland. Yeah, I mean, he's a big. That should be a tight end. I mean, the guy's 6'3", 240.
That's a big dude, man. But yeah, I don't know. I think this team's gonna be strong, especially. Right, yeah, like I said, he's a big dude, man. But like wide receivers, offensive line, running backs coming, everybody coming back. This is another one where it's like, okay, this is championship or bust type feel to this team. I know Vegas may not say it. I know EA Sports, and their ratings may not have it. I'll tell you why I think that they're lower in the EA Sports ratings. It's because Alan Bowman, in my opinion. I like the guy. I think he can sling it, but also the turnovers. I mean, it was real bad. So I bet that's probably why they're a little bit lower. Again, I'm not an insider. I don't know. I'm just saying my opinion. And also, let's not forget a guy coming in and Tyler Foster, 6'7" tight end. That dude's a monster. I think you might have mentioned it, but I was coughing up a storm. But I mean, that's just another weapon that you add. So I think this team's going to be dangerous. You need Ezigbo to step up, Nick Martin, guys like that, Colin Oliver, the guys that have been there on your defense to step up and get better at run defense and just control the game, slow it down just a little bit, give your offense some time to rest. And this team is dangerous. They've got a lot going for them. They're going to be one of the favorites, in my opinion, to win this conference. And again, we'll let you guys know as we get down the line what our final projections are. Key to the season, though, Alan Bowman, control the ball. Be better on third downs, too. That's what I want to see. Trev, anything before we talk schedule?
Now let's move on to the schedule. Yeah, this is pretty much straightforward as far as the classes go. They're not much to speak of, but they filled needs and they're building depth at positions that need to have depth. So that's a good move by Gundy's part, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Gundy always has a solid team. No matter what, even last year when we thought things were going south, look where they ended up. And hey, I mean, that's just what Gundy does. He's been there forever. He's gonna keep doing it. So let's see what happens in 2024 when we talk this schedule. It starts off pretty decently. All right, you got South Dakota State. We know they're a good FCS team. Don't overlook them. Go handle business. Arkansas. Look, Pittman and them. We're gonna talk about them when we do the SEC previews, but they're in like oh shit mode. Okay. So you gotta look out for Arkansas, take them seriously, and then you play Tulsa, and then it gets real. This is where the things pick up. It's Saturday, September 21st, Trevor.
Yeah, Brennan, I was just looking at the schedule, and I was like, man, if they can manage to win, obviously I consider August 31st, September 1st, but whatever. Tomato.
Yeah.
But by that being said, if they win the month of September, undefeated, walk out of Kansas State undefeated, they will be in the championship game. Yeah. I would put money on it. If they are undefeated after the Kansas State game, there is nothing that can stop them except themselves, because they will be
Agreed.
favored in every game after that game.
Absolutely agree. You've got to win that
The month of
first month.
September, you have
Yes.
to. The month of September has to go undefeated. And if you're there, if you do that, you give yourself the best possible avenue to potentially go undefeated.
Yeah. And look, Utah is one of the favorites to win this conference, and they're coming into Stillwater. All right,
Yeah.
at Boone Pickens. You've got to handle business against Utah. And it's not going to be easy, but they have the offensive talent to do it. Again, it hinges on Alan Bowman and what he does with the football. But I'm telling you guys, this is going to be a dangerous team. Utah, watch out. Kansas State, it's at Kansas State. And then you got West Virginia. But at least West Virginia is also back in Stillwater. But then after that, BYU, I don't think they're going to be very good. Baylor is going to be improved with their offense, but this still should be a team that you can go out and beat. Same with Arizona State. TCU is one you always got to watch out for. And then Texas Tech and Colorado to finish the season after a bye week. Like you said, Trevor, you get through that first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get through the
basically
first
the month of
games.
if you walk out of
Yeah.
the month of September undefeated, you're solid.
Yep. And that they have every potential to do it. Defense got to get a little bit better in third downs, got to get the run defense going.
Yeah.
And I say that's maybe why, people aren't so high on them too, is because last year's stats were really rough on the defensive end. They're like, okay, well, yeah, they're returning starters, but it's a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
So,
do you think
what's
it's
that?
because the inconsistency that's why there's a lot of not faith in Las Vegas? It's not that necessarily the record or the interceptions, but more or less just the massive inconsistency from game to game.
It's got to be.
I feel like that's the only reason that they would be 7 wins and Kansas State has 9.5. Obviously, the schedule in Kansas State's not nearly as hard, but it is difficult, in my opinion, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas State schedule's tough too. So I don't know. I think it's got to be the inconsistencies, the the stats from last season and how much is returned. Right. But again, I don't know how Vegas works. So I'm not a gambling guy. I gambled once in a college class and with the teacher, and it helped me out. But that was my one win. I'm not doing anymore. Maybe I'll go into that on another episode down the line. But guys, let us know what you think, Oklahoma State fans. Let us know how you're feeling about it. I know I see some of you on Twitter. You're very excited about the season. I don't blame you. Let us know, how you're feeling about it. Why is Vegas jacked up? Or maybe why do they feel like you're not going to be, higher on the win column? So let us know what you think, guys. Trev, anything else before we call tonight?
No. Appreciate everybody listening. Don't forget to subscribe, share. Also, real quick reminder, we still do have the entries for subscriptions. So if you subscribe, you can automatically be entered into winning the new NCAA football game for whatever console you play on.
Exactly. Let us know. That's going to be coming up soon. We'll put more out about it here coming up as well.
And if you are interested in that, go to the Facebook at Gridiron Uncensored on Facebook, and you can find the link there, and you can just read about the rules and everything like that, and you guys will be all set.
Absolutely. So again, thank you guys. We appreciate you. Let us know what you think. And hey, we want to talk ball, so holler at us in the comments, especially on YouTube. That helps us out a lot. Have a great night. We'll see you around.
Later, everybody.
Later.